Let's talk about this outsourcing as a core competency now, which I kind of like the way you phrased it there, because I hadn't really thought about that. And it goes back to, again, the whole title of this episode, right? Having the right skills and then mindset to outsource logistics. And like I said at the beginning, in every discipline, whether it's sports, medical research, cooking, you name it, right? You have to have a core set of skills in order to succeed. So, what are, and I think you touched upon them a little bit here already, but what are some of those core skills, core competencies, if you will, that companies need to have to successfully create and manage outsourcing relationships?
Well, I would tell you it really is about the relationship. That's where it starts. That's where the investment is, and everything else kind of falls or hangs off of that relationship you've created between the client and the provider. Number one, there is without a doubt, and maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but without a doubt, there's a life cycle to what we do. And that life cycle may be a quarter life cycle, that may be a half year life cycle, that may be a full year life cycle, but there's a life cycle. And it's imperative that the client and the provider both understand that life cycle. And that life cycle really starts with understanding. It's to understand one another, to understand the scope of what the client's trying to achieve. It is the first step in that life cycle. And then once you get through that understanding piece of it, it's about learning. And, it's the client learning what you as a provider are capable of and the services that you might offer him. And it's us as a provider learning about our client and what makes that client tick and what measures are important to them and what are the tactical and strategic measures and how do you positively affect their business. So there's this understand element to the life cycle, there's the learn element to the life cycle, and then the third piece of that life cycle is adjusting. And how do you take those understandings and how do you take those learnings and how do you adjust back to make that relationship work? So again, that could be a quarterly phenomena, that can be an annual phenomena, but there is an absolute life cycle to the relationship. And if you can figure that out, and again, that's what we do as strong providers is figure that life cycle out. But it's key. So that would be my number one answer to, how do you make this work? What does a client need to be successful in this road? I would say number two, without a doubt, and most clients are getting pretty savvy to this, and they're fairly good at it. Is a relationship manager. So it's that SPOC, as we call it, that single point of contact. I mean, that is so mission critical to what we do. And without that relationship manager on the client side, it's just difficult to manage. When you've got too many people to report to on the client side, and those people have differing opinions and perhaps differing priorities for the day, it becomes very difficult as a provider. So the relationship manager is key. There's no doubt about that. The typical relationship manager is a well-rounded individual. They really have a great understanding of their business. It's beyond supply chain. It's about customer service. It's about their finances. It's about their technology. It's about what makes them tick. I mean, that's a relationship manager's job. They tend to be fairly mature, so they've got the gray hair going on like I do. So they're well along in their careers. They're big picture people. They don't get bogged down in the minutia. I mean, they're big picture people. And for the most part, in our particular world, we see them coming from the supply chain function within the client's world. So, I would say number two, that to make these things work, to be good at this, it's about having a dedicated relationship manager in place. The third thing we do to create success in our relationships is we try to mirror the client. So, we'll take myself as an example. I'm the senior executive in legacy supply chain. I'll try to mirror myself in the client's world. So whether that be the sponsoring executive, or whether that be a divisional president or a VP within our client's world, it's incumbent upon me to mirror that relationship. So, our VP of operations will do the same thing with our clients. Our facility managers will do the same thing. So we like to mirror ourselves across the client's organization. And the last thing I'll add in there, and what we see as a differential in creating success and making these things work, is uh, more and more of our clients are allowing us to become more exposed to their business. And what I mean by that is, they may introduce us to one of their market managers, and we'll develop a direct relationship with a market manager. It may be the market manager for the Southwest US or the Northwest US, but we'll develop a relationship with that market manager. We'll develop a relationship with their forecasting group. So we have a one-to-one relationship, with the people that are forecasting the business and forecasting their growth over the next quarter or the next couple of years. We'll develop relationships with their technology people so we can get a better sense of where their technology is headed and what inputs that they're looking from our technology, or perhaps if we're operating on their technology, what changes are coming. So, I would say that it's absolutely important, and again, not easy to do. The client's putting a lot of trust in you as a provider to allow you to have those direct relationships with all the functional areas in their world. So it's key, but it certainly does help. So there's a lot of science to what we do. There's no doubt about that, but there's also a lot of art to making these relationships work, and that's part of the art right there, is developing relationships within your client's world.